Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central and another Master Guide. Now this hero in particular is incredibly popular. Genji is a firm fan favourite and everybody loves to get decent advice on the hero as he can rarely carry a game if he's good enough. Today I'm talking to Misfit's main DPS player, Tvique, about how to play Genji. So I guess we'll get started with the question that we usually start off with. Some heroes are a little bit more off meta I suppose, when we ask why you play them, in what situations. Genji could pretty much work on any team, but why should people learn to play Genji?
You can say that Genji is one of those heroes that you can actually one-trick. Just because like he fits in so many different compositions, you can always make him work to a certain extent, but it might not always be the most efficient or like the most good hero, I guess you can say, in the versus the current composition that you're facing. But there's always one way or another where you can actually make it work.
Yeah, I guess we can go over when is a good opportunity to play Genji, but before then, just for people that may not know who you are in particular, sort of what is your background? It's a little bit more than talking like what are your season highs, because you've got some pretty prolific wins behind your belt in sort of playing for Rogue, for example.
I currently play for Misfits, and we haven't been doing awfully great lately, but you know, we're gonna do better in future, of course. But to go on to my history, I guess you could say that I've been playing in every single big LAN so far in the current Overwatch scene, where it comes down to Apex, it comes down to Gamescom, E-League, etc, etc. And I won a pretty a good fair amount of the LANs myself, so I'd say it's been a pretty good run so far.
Mostly playing Genji as well. Are you on the main sort of flex DPS, would you call it?
Yeah, exactly.
A good way of sort of asking a question surrounding being a better Genji, I suppose, is what kind of common mistakes do you see in competitive when it comes to enemy Genjis on your team? Is there anything that stand out that you just want to be like, look, stop doing this because it's a really bad thing to do, if that makes sense?
I guess you can say stop trying to take like unnecessary one versus ones. Even though Genji is like a stupid strong character in a 1v1 scenario, in an actual match in Overwatch, taking that 1v1 is most likely just gonna like risk the whole push, if that makes sense. So I guess you would say that the biggest mistake I see most Genjis do is just like they're just trying to do everything on their own. I mean,
fight the team on their own sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it makes sense because you want to be the superstar, you want to be the super carry, but that's not really how you want to play Genji at all. A good Genji is only as good as your team is.
I think he's a really difficult hero, much like Farah, that if you are really obvious when it comes to your movement, heroes like Soldier, McCree, even Farah's can take you out fairly easily. Have you got any tips when it comes to being really evasive, not being really hard to hit, and just being an absolute nuisance when getting in the face of supports and other heroes that you want to dive on?
I mean, best tip I can give is just play with another mate and then just go on to like the target that you want to kill. Like that's the absolute best tip I could give. But if I would say that if you actually want to take a fight versus a Soldier or versus a McCree, you should definitely look out first for if they have used any of their abilities. Like that's the most important part. But otherwise, you should definitely use your climbing ability, just climbing up walls like up and down all the time, because it makes you super annoying to just deal with. But if you are in like a really tricky situation where you are forced to take this 1v1 versus this other hero, and you can't really get out of it because you've got dash and cooldown or like for whatever reasons, you should definitely not try to like double jump too much, if that would make sense. But if you do need to double jump, you will need to be able to get over his head and then get on the other side of him. You will be able to basically just always be above him, if that makes sense, because it's really hard to aim upwards for a hitscan player. It kind of makes everything weird in a sense.
What about with supports as well? Like, Anna is, I guess, watching out for the grenade and the sleep, but Zenyatta's become a lot more popular at the moment as well. Like, what's the best way of diving onto them? And Mercy's as well. Mercy's are incredibly popular and competitive, and it's mostly the Genji's job to make sure that she doesn't res everyone.
Well, for Mercy, it's just kind of just knowing how a fight is gonna play out before it even starts, and just being able to tell, well, everyone just dropped from on high ground, and I don't see Mercy. She's most likely gonna be staying on that high ground and come in afterwards and rest. So you know, Mercy's kind of simple in that way, where you just find her and you just kill her because she can't really put up much of a resistance. I guess I'd say for a Genji, Zenyatta isn't really hard to deal with. It's the only hard part is getting him unnoticed, or like getting in behind him or anywhere close to him unnoticed, so you can always get like that drop on him. Where it doesn't actually matter too much if you would go up against an Ana, just because of her nade and sleep ability. So what you need to do if you actually want to challenge an Ana, you should definitely not dash in first and try to just deal instant damage or like just burst damage to her. You should just try to stay on range and just try to snipe her down, so she's either forced to react with a sleep or a nade, preferably with a nade.
Yeah, try and get those cooldowns used before you go in.
Exactly.
Right click, shift, melee and stuff. Would you say it's quite important to be fairly patient then when playing as Genji?
Oh yes, Genji is all about patience. Like, it's literally only patience when it really comes down to like playing a really good Genji.
So, for the most part, Genji, as we said, is pretty much playable across any form of maps, on any side, in any comps. Is there any standout maps to you that's like, yeah, this is a Genji kind of game? And is there any maps that you go, actually, we should maybe get a Soldier instead, or a Tracer, or a Pharah? Like, when is Genji at his best, but also when is Genji not a good choice?
If you would say, like, Numbani is actually like a really good point, or a really good map to bring up, because then you have the first point where Genji is stupid good, because you have high grounds and you can hide like on top of the high grounds and just like be annoying with the high ground. That goes for first and last point, not last point, the middle point, sorry. And as soon as you get to that last point, you probably want to switch away from Genji as soon as you can, because the map is way too open and the length to get to anyone is way too far. So if you would say that as soon as the map kind of stretches out and it requires you to like use your dash to actually get to them and not deal damage, that's probably a point where you want to switch away from Genji, and that kind of goes for every single map.
Well, that towards the end of maps is where Genji becomes his weakest.
I mean, it's not only at the end of maps, but generally it is at the end of the maps, because like King's Row, Numbani for an example, both of them, they are kind of like the stretches to get to the backline, or just the stretches to get onto players. You would often be required to use your dash to get to them and not deal damage with the dash. So that would like remove a lot of your burst damage as a Genji.
Let's go over the abilities a little bit, I guess, as well then. Starting off with the left click and right click now, it's fairly sort of standard that when you're in close you want to right click, when you're far away you want to poke away with left, do a little bit of damage. Sort of like Pharah, I suppose, in chokes in areas where there tends to be enemies. Are there any other kind of maybe intermediate tips when it comes to aiming and right clicking and left clicking that sort of spring to mind?
For left clicking, really all I can really say is you should definitely take your time and then learn your opponent's movement patterns, if that makes sense. And instead of just spamming away left click and just hoping you'll hit shit, you should just instead just wait up to see if they like make an obvious mistake in the movement where they just constantly AD all the time, just basically standing still on the spot, and then you spot your crosshair on that spot and just clicking left click, and you're most likely gonna hit 2 out of 3 shurikens, and that will like results in efficient ult gain.
For sure. And anything really with right click, just getting close and
as long as you need to make sure that you need to hit a shuriken, left click is probably and generally your way to go about it, really.
How about dash then? Because for the most part it's fairly obvious that you want to dash in to confirm the end of kills, just because it's a nice fast mobile ability that can cut down anybody that's at a certain HP. What about when it comes to using dash outside of trying to dash through enemies or to confirm kills, such as either engaging into a fight or disengaging out of one? Because the main difference that I see is the dash management for the GM top 500 Genjis compared to lower Genjis as well. Like, how do you want to be managing your dash when you're not necessarily using it to just do damage?
If you're not necessarily doing it to finish off kills or necessarily doing a lot of damage, you're just gaining like a lot of ult charge because you can dash through 3 people and then get away with it. I guess you really just want to really save it, because if those opportunities don't really show themselves in most scenarios, especially in ranked, you're you're probably not going to be able to do much with it unless you're communicating with the rest of your team that I can create space here, like I can go on this guy, can we do anything with it? And well, if you're playing in EU, you're probably not going to get a response, but if you're playing in NA, you might just get something out of it because you didn't count for that guy having like really close to ultimate. So if you just create a little bit of space, make sure that Reinhardt turn his shield, he can get that ultimate, and then you just like really snowball from that simple like dashing just straight through them and then being able to survive.
What about deflects? It's Genji's only form of mitigating damage that's coming at him. Of course, you want to watch out for stuff like the Feign hook from a Roadhog and stuff like that, but are there any other situations where you might want to be careful of deflecting because you might fall into somebody's like trap, I suppose?
I mean, you shouldn't really ever be that scared of actually using reflect. You should almost always use it on cooldown just to mitigate as much damage as you can, because it's really important actually that Genji is on full HP all the time, because like it isn't really that hard to hit a Genji, but it's also like it's really difficult to stay in a fight or like just continuously do something in a fight as soon as you start dropping HP, because you only have that one dash to get out and in. So if you're not full HP by the time you get into a fight, for an example, like your team is about to dive onto the Ana, and you don't have full HP, and the nade does a lot of damage, all of a sudden you're gonna be like way below HP, like almost in melee range already, where it's just like you basically dash in, barely even get that mouse 2 off, and you're already dead. And already at that point they're gonna snowball pretty hard, because playing 5v6 in Overwatch is like a really huge disadvantage compared to other games in such a manner.
Definitely, I get you. I guess the main thing that we should be talking about is Genji's ultimate. Very important ultimate when it comes to winning team fights. Has really good synergy with the likes of Nana Boost and Grav. What kind of things are people messing up with the most when it comes to Dragon Blade?
I actually really want to say that I think more and more people is going to start using Dragon Blade as a bait to force out support ultimates, because as of recently, at least in pro meta, where more and more teams start to play double support with double defense ultimates, where say Lucio has a sun barrier, increases your HP, and then you have Zenyatta who has tranquility, who has a lot of healing in it. And that, like, as soon as one of those is popped, unless you're nano boosted, you won't be able to do anything in those scenarios. So what you want to do is that you want to like force, assuming that you have another offensive ultimate on your side, where, let's just say example for Soldier, where he has aimbot, you just really want to get in and then just force one of their ultimates, or just basically you could also force both, because like a Dragon Blade is coming, that shit is dangerous. You really gotta
yeah, especially in like ranked play where communication's not always the strongest.
Exactly. So you really just want to like force that out, and then you just get out as soon as you can. We are gonna be able to see more and more of that, because like as soon as you Dragon Blade, as most compositions really, where you play through the triple DPS, or you play the 2-2 with let's say a D.Va or a Monkey, the Monkey won't really be able to help you. The D.Va is most likely protecting your backline, so you can't really expect any help from the D.Va. So all you really got to do is just make sure that at least you force out an ultimate as soon as you use yours, and that makes it like a sort of a trade, because most likely you're not going to get a kill.
So what about in ranked play then? Because it tends to be still nowadays, even though Xenia has been picked a lot more in the pro meta, people still really like playing Ana, just because of the synergy that they can get.
I mean, you just gotta make sure that as soon as you dash in, you won't get... Well, I can't really say that you won't get naded, because a lot of the times they will have a good check off your ultimate, and they will save their cooldowns and such. So what you really want to do is that you make sure that you communicate to the team that you're gonna go in with the Dragon Blade, because going in with the Dragon Blade alone, it might just result that you barely even get one kill, because Lucio Poop is so strong nowadays that you're just gonna get pooped off as soon as you go. But to make like the best out of a situation is just make sure that you can, with your first dash before you even Dragon Blade, make sure that you actually get in the Ana's face, or even the Lucio's face, because actually killing the Lucio first before the Ana makes it a lot easier to even kill the Ana like in a wholesome. So making sure that you actually get into the Lucio's face before you even like start drawing your sword it makes it a lot easier to get a good Dragon Blade off.
This part, the meta overall means that a lot of heroes get picked, and of course in competitive you run into one tricks aplenty. Are there any sort of heroes that you want to be incredibly careful of?
Basically, like, you can always make Genji work, as I said before, but it makes it stupid hard to play Genji as soon as you're up against Winston, or as most people call him, Monkey. Like, basically he just makes your life so much harder in every single way, because he can basically always follow you, and you can't really ever dash into a Monkey because he is going to kill you 90% of the time as soon as you use your dash.
I guess there is a bit of a stigma surrounding Genji as well, of being the typical I need healing, going in to get the full team kill, wanting to play the game, not really caring about winning, just about killing stuff. What should people really know when it comes to having a Genji on their team or playing a Genji in these situations? Because it's a pretty bold thing to be like, I'm going to be the main DPS of this and play Genji. And sort of looking at lower tiers, maybe even like plat, gold, silver, even below. What should people bear in mind when it comes to Genji in this sense? What do you really want people to know and to get into their heads when it comes to playing Genji themselves or having one on their team that may not be doing necessarily well?
I mean, just making sure that your Genji is basically always fully healed, because like as soon as he just starts taking a little bit of damage, he becomes so much incredibly weaker than he would be at 200 HP, which is why you see so many Genjis always saying I need healing and so on. It is really just because like they become so much weaker when it actually isn't 200 HP. And I mean, you also have those kind of people who just keeps on taking spam for no reason whatsoever, and just keeps on doing it, and they start getting on your nerves. You know, you should probably tell them that you should probably play a little bit more passive while they stop healing you altogether. I mean, that should have a pretty effective effect on them when it comes to stop taking damage, as they won't receive any more heals.
Yeah, I get you. That kind of brings me on to something as well. We mentioned about engaging and disengaging with Genji, but when should you be looking to be incredibly aggressive? You see a lot of the dive teams, like, say you're on Gibraltar, you take the first point. You, of course, want to be aggressive to begin with to try and catch anybody that might be late spawning from the room that's below the shuttle. What kind of situations do you want to be hyper-aggressive to really push people, to catch people off guard? And what situations do you actually want to maybe not do that completely, being like, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't try and dive their backline or something like that?
This is like
what are you looking out for?
This is actually a really interesting topic, because generally, even though this might not even have anything to do with Genji at all, but it revolves all around Overwatch, so it basically revolves around Genji as well. So let's just say that you have this situation where you just taken the first point, and you kill the team in like several different waves, so they all spawn at every at other times than everyone. Exactly, you stagger them. So really, what you want to be looking at is to stagger them even more, and then continue and so on to stagger them. And Genji is like one of the perfect heroes in the game to just do that. It's just to stagger, to find the heroes on the enemy team, where you can just like easily just go in and just stagger them. Because as I said before, Genji 1 versus 1 is a stupid strong hero, but you also want to avoid them as much as you can. But as you are staggering them, the whole team should always be looking onto always like getting forward, getting position onto the enemy team, and just continue staggering, even if they all spawned. If you got just a little bit of information where exactly how they are positioned themselves, if you know this one guy is gonna try to go on a flank because he has an ultimate. Let's say this soldier has an ultimate and he doesn't want to go with the other 5 because he want to get like a flanking ultimate off. Where as soon as you're gonna go aggressive, you're gonna go on those 5 guys. You have ultimates, everything is super cool. You're gonna kill everyone, and then this soldier comes out of nowhere and he's just ulting you. If you already know that before the fight even begins, because well, that soldier, he did a lot of damage, like that first push that we did, and it's gone like another 20 seconds, he should have his ultimate now. So you should always just have your eyes open, looking for that soldier. And when you don't see him in that 5 clump, you should definitely start thinking he is most likely flanking, or he's just delaying himself right behind the team.
And finally, I guess we ask everybody with these master guides, what is the best advice or tip that you can give, not only playing Genji but in Overwatch, when it comes to improving your game overall.
It's doing it and you want to be unique or something. That's not really how the game works. You just want to do your best, you want to improve, you want to get better. Just continuously play the game. As the game is still really new, the concept sort of in the game is still really new. Everyone is learning every single day. So you just gotta continuously play.
So just watch people, watch how they play, and imitate whatever you find comfortable and fun, I guess.
Exactly.
And finally, where can people find more information on you? What are your YouTubes and Twitch? Because you upload and stream pretty regularly, right?
Exactly. You can find me over on YouTube by the name of Tvique, and you can also find me over on Twitch by the name of Tvique. You just basically use that U and E at the end of Tvique. And you can also find me over at Misfits Tvique on Twitter.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. We haven't got many heroes left to cover in the Master Guide series, which you can check out in the description below. But let us know what heroes you would like us to cover next. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you then.